What is a lease option, or renting to own? And as a home seller, how can it benefit me? And what is a tenant buyer going to get out of the deal? Can I get full retail for my home and avoid paying up to 15% in realtor commissions and closing costs using a lease option? Welcome to BuyBaltimoreProperties.com's video tutorial on the benefits of renting to own. We hope to answer all these questions and more in this short presentation, so let's go ahead and get started. Home sellers trying to sell their property in today's market need to be open to creative solutions. And if you're a seller out there and haven't found any luck finding a conventional home buyer with an approved bank loan, then there's no better way to sell your house than to a rent-to-own buyer, or commonly called a tenant buyer. You will get your full asking price this way and pay no realtor commissions. Renting to own is also commonly called a lease with an option to buy, or a lease option. The typical rent-to-own buyer desperately wants to become a homeowner, but their credit score may not be sufficient to get the type of loan they're currently looking for, or they may not have had the time to come up with the down payment required by their lender. BuyBaltimoreProperties.com's tenant placement services have been helping homeowners sell their homes and home buyers purchase a home with lease options for years. We create a win-win solution for both the tenant buyer and the seller, and we handle all the necessary paperwork. With tighter lending standards, home buyers around the country are looking to become tenant buyers, and we have an abundance of them waiting to buy your home right now. So let's break down how this all works. The rent-to-sell homeowners enter into a lease agreement for a fixed period of time, typically between 12 to 24 months with their tenant buyer. At any point during the lease, the tenant buyer has the right to exercise their option and purchase the home from the seller. As we stated earlier, a seller will typically need to give their tenant buyer anywhere from 12 to 24 months to A, get their credit in order, and B, save up for an adequate down payment. The seller will set a purchase price for the property before the lease agreement is finalized and signed. A different purchase price can be set for a 12, 18, or 24-month option period, which gives the tenant buyer incentive to buy the property as soon as possible. Generally, if you sold your home through a realtor, you would get 85% of your asking price after realtor commissions and closing costs. In a typical real estate transaction, the seller will pay 6% in commissions, plus closing costs ranging anywhere from 1 to 6%, depending on where you live and how much seller help the buyer needs. Additionally, you will need to market your property on the MLS for 3 to 6 months and incur holding costs the entire time the property is being marketed. Those holding costs can include the loan payment, taxes, insurance, utility bills, yard maintenance, the list goes on. So at this point you're probably saying to yourself, great, this sounds appealing, but I need to know that I'm going to get a good tenant buyer that is really intent on exercising their option and buying my home in the near future. BuyBaltimoreProperties.com pre-screens all of our tenant buyers thoroughly. We check and call personal references, we check employment history, income, credit, all of it. But most importantly, we make sure that your tenant buyer will be able to afford your mortgage payment on your home once they're approved for a loan, exercise the option to buy, and at the end of the day, they need your stamp of approval as well. One of the most important things a seller must understand is the incentives that the tenant buyer has to buy and buy quickly. Just to name a few. 1. The tenant buyer is required to put down a fairly large, non-refundable option fee that is applied towards the purchase price of the property. This option fee is credited to the tenant buyer at the time they go to closing to purchase the property. 2. A portion of the monthly rent, if paid on time of course, can be applied towards reducing the purchase price of the home in the end. We should note that this incentive is optional to you, the seller. And 3. As stated earlier, we typically structure 12, 18, or 24-month purchase prices. Obviously, the purchase price grows with the length of the option agreement. This incentivizes the tenant buyer to purchase the home as quickly as possible, before the price continues to escalate. Okay, so now let's say it's time for your tenant buyer to purchase the property, and it's time to get an appraisal. Remember now, the purchase price was agreed upon at the onset of the option contract, and again, the price will vary depending on how many months the agreement is set for. However, because the sale of the rent-to-own home takes place over 12 to 24 months, the home may go up or down in value by the time the tenant buyer is ready to purchase your home. As with any purchase, the tenant buyer's lender is going to require an appraisal. Three things can happen with that appraisal. 1. The property appraises for the purchase price, and everything goes smoothly and easily to title and closing. 2. The property appraises for more than the purchase price, and you, the seller, is obligated to sell that property for the agreed upon contract price. In this case, you got your asking price, and the tenant buyer receives the excess equity. And 3. The property appraises for less than the contract sales price. Although the situation is rare, it still can happen in a down market. If this is the case, you, the seller, are only obligated to sell the home at the original agreed upon sales price. You can, however, choose to lower the sales price, as any tenant buyer would have to have a property appraisal, extend the current agreement until the house appraises at the agreed upon sales price, or work out some other viable solution. To wrap up, we'd like to recap a few of the benefits to the seller by going with our rent-to-own program. 1. Hundreds of potential tenant buyers are looking for a lease option home right now, especially right here in Baltimore. 2. You get to sell your property for your asking price in any type of market. 3. If neither the seller nor the buyer is represented by a realtor, you pay no realtor commissions and eliminate most, if not all, of the closing costs by passing these expenses on to the tenant buyer. 4. You're going to have a quality tenant paying your loan each month who's going to treat that home as if it were their own. 5. Pass some or all of your repairs and maintenance onto your tenant buyer, unlike you can with a regular renter. 6. The seller continues to get the tax benefit of mortgage deductions until the tenant buyer exercises the option and purchases the property. And finally, 7. If your tenant buyer fails to obtain a mortgage loan or waive the option to purchase, you receive rent during the entire contract term and all the accumulated equity. We here at BuyBaltimoreProperties.com thank you for taking the time to look at other alternatives to selling your home. We provide an example video of a typical lease option to buy. Be sure and check it out at www.buybaltimoreproperties.com/option. If you'd like to email us, please do so at info@buybaltimoreproperties.com. We hope this video helped you to understand the benefits of renting to sell your home, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks and have a great day.